full moon in Sagittarius says, let's be more carefree. But does the Dreambot agree? Is that the collective influence? And we got to make sure for June 17th, June 18th, 2019, that we got our ducks in a row in terms of what the main energy is so that we surf that energy correctly to maximize what energy is there. Now, I have a new summary slide that I want to introduce. And this is exciting, I think. This is just an example slide. We'll get into the exact slide today, but just to give you an idea of the different colors, these circles represent the different energies. And the solid purple energy is astrology, the main astrology influence. So in this case, the full moon Sagittarius, but also Mercury conjunct Mars. We're going to get into this a little bit later. And then we have Dreambot Major, which means this is the major Dreambot theme. In this case, superhero. We're going to get into that. And so we're going to then move these circles closer and overlap them as appropriate, including with the I-Ching readings. We also have minor aspects in astrology, and those will be indicated in segmented lines. So the more these overlap, the more confident we are with knowing what the main influence is. Then once we get the overlap, we can estimate what it's going to feel like. That's what we'll put down here. And then we even have a congruency estimator. This diagram is no overlap, so it shouldn't be at 0.75. 1.0 is equivalent of 100%. That would be all these circles on top of each other. And so that's the highest you can go, is a 1.0. All right, so that's just the example. Let's get started on today. And you can see that there is quite a bit of overlap, and this might look really confusing at first, but we're going to drill down one by one these energies, and then you're going to see exactly how these energies overlap. This is the overlap part here. So this represents the strongest, most significant energy. Now, what does that feel like? Well, it's going to feel like, problem solving, inner conflict, worry, rumination. There's a need to fix something, maybe even in the extreme cases, vindication and justice. Now, how did I arrive at that? Okay, so we have the major astrology themes are full moon in Sagittarius, Mercury conjunct Mars, and we also need to consider the north and south nodes. Now, we do have an aspect that's outside of the overlap, because what does the Dreambot say? Well, their main themes are superhero and belonging. So there is about a 50% overlap in that. And the I-Ching, and I'm going to explain all these, okay? So this is just a summary slide that you're going to be able to see all the way through. The I-Ching says, the I-Ching reading says 18, work on what has been spoiled, okay? And so this directly is a subset of the superhero complex that you're going to see in the Dreambot. And then you also have the minor astrology aspects, which are moon trine Uranus and moon conjunct Saturn. I don't expect you to remember all these, but just see that, some of the minor aspects overlap with the major aspects. That's a good thing, and overlap with all this. But in essence, it feels like I just talked about. All right, let's get into the Dreambot first. And with this one, I'm going to show you what the memes are, spending very little time here. But we have the save, fight for, and protect. I call it the superhero complex because in here is all the words about guarding and helping people. And you even have the word superhero here, making everything okay. All right. And then you have a secondary of this affiliation, this need to belong. We don't really see that in the astrology all that well, other than the Gemini influence. And then a really small one with the victim. Now that makes sense because you can't really have a superhero without having a victim. You can't have a superhero complex. You can't have problem solving without a problem, okay? Now it's just dependent on how long and how much you're spending on this. But as we go into the astrology, you can start to notice that down in the right corner, you have the summary slide. So you can kind of watch that as we go. All right, let's get back into our highlight. And we, of course, have the full moon. This is very early on, Sunday morning, the 17th, probably when everyone is asleep. It goes exact. And we have the sun in tropical Gemini, with, of course, as the full moon, with the moon on the opposite side over the galactic center on the top side or ending side of Sagittarius, tropical Sagittarius. Incidentally, this is going to be a factor later for our solution, but you can see this is a little snippet of as soon as this full moon is over, you have the moon in tropical Sagittarius in that little section where it's also in sidereal Sagittarius. So hint, hint, that's going to be a little bit of a go-getter later. Now, also as the moon progresses a little bit further, it makes a nice hefty trine over to Uranus, and that was one of those minor aspects that's all about change. Now, change is very congruent with the whole theme of full moon in Sagittarius, because Sagittarius very free-spirited and carefree, and maybe even impulsive. But it's a go-getter. It's it's very passionate, particularly in the deep mental realm of spiritualism, maybe even religion. They tend to be philosophers as well. So heavy in the mind, which is incidentally across from Gemini, which is very mind-oriented thoughts and learning, and even creativity and social aspect. So all that is there, but is it fair to say that it's that simple? It's just, well, full moon in Sagittarius, so let's go get them. No, what we saw in the astrology, when we combine the Dreambot, there's a reason why the Dreambot is seeing some other energies, and that is because on Tuesday, meanwhile, I do need to insert here that we've been seeing this opposition for, I think, 2 full CIRF periods, CIRF reports. So go back into the other CIRF reports, especially the one 2 times ago, and you'll see that there's a full description of this opposition. It gets even stronger, because the Mercury makes a conjunction with Mars at 11:17 a.m. on Tuesday morning, the 18th. And that's over the North Node. These Mercury conjunct Mars loves to move forward and thinks of solutions. Solutions come easy. And, North Node is into the future, and it's your, kind of life plan. So it's not just the future. It's like your life purpose kind of future. So, there's a lot to be had here, but that conjunction happens in Cancer, and that Cancer is not really home, or what Mars or Mercury would consider home, because they're in that strange watery emotional thing. I just want to go home kind of thing. But, I want to move forward, but at home, that's still possible. But you really need to be cognizant of where that conflict is, because it's definitely there. Making matters even worse, then, on the evening of Tuesday, so this is after our next CIRF report, on the 18th, Moon makes a conjunction with Saturn. Saturn, still within a couple degrees of Pluto. So that's still a conjunction. Both of those are in retrograde. So again, I don't want to keep reiterating over and over again, but the Dreambot is definitely seeing how this energy is still at play. Moon highlighting, Moon working in perfectly with the Pluto and Saturn conjunction. Both, very deep aspects. And of course, over the South Node. So you're dragging around the emotional past with you, and karmic past, and that whole sort of thing. So it can kind of feel like you're being dragged down. You've got like a little weight around your foot, not able to really move forward at all, even though you've got that really positive Mars Mercury conjunction where thoughts and actions are really congruent. But the emotional piece is kind of out of sorts here in Cancer. So we have that as well. So how do we work this out? Well, this is where the I-Ching comes in. And the I-Ching says, now I want to reiterate, I made sure when I did the reading that the coins showed us the biggest influence, that was going to be the first one. And then I stipulated that if there is a change line, that change line will tell us what the solution is. And the solution being the best way to use the energy, the major energy that's there. All right. So obviously the first one was 18, and we did have a change line, but it was on line 3. But anyway, 18 is work on what has been spoiled. Isn't that interesting that we can, let's go back to the astrology, work on what has been spoiled. Is there, I mean, it just sounds like Saturn. Also moon, work on what has been spoiled is a very subjective thing. What has been spoiled it's going to have emotional response, where the moon is going to show that response. And that is going to be very prominent on Tuesday, particularly Tuesday evening. But, then again, this whole conjunction has been there for quite a long time here. So anyway, it's very apparent why that 18 is there. We had the change line, which produced hexagram 4, youthful folly. And in youthful folly, it is about free spirit and carefree and all that sort of thing. But how does one go from 18, work on what has been spoiled, emotionally just reminiscing and ruminating about the past, trying to problem solve, trying to be according to the Dreambot, the superhero. You can't be a superhero without a problem. And so you've got to figure out how to bounce from trying to solve these problems over into just youthful folly, which kind of means like moving forward very vulnerably, not taking all the past lessons as you move forward. And the I-Ching itself, the Book of Changes, uses the metaphor of river, like a river. As it rushes forward, it has all these different dips and grooves and holes in it, and those holes just get covered. And it says that's kind of like the successful person in these energies is the one who can just move forward without a whole lot of forethought about how to fill those holes in and fill those gaps in and how to problem solve and all that. It's just more about the emphasis is just on moving forward, even if I don't really know everything about what's going forward. I can think of some of the hardest zodiac signs in order to do that, and one of those would be Aquarius, because they're so afraid of failure, fear of failure, and so moving forward in this youthful folly thing is very difficult for the typical tropical Aquarius. So that's going to be the key. Now let's look at one more thing before we get to the full solution slides. We have that full moon, and this full moon, by the way, most moon aspects are going to stay within plus or minus 24 hours. But there's a lot more cosmic timing on this, depending on your view and, the different readings, especially your houses and personal horoscopes and all that. But anyway, what you're seeing, and I mentioned this before, was that the Sagittarius influence is clearly there with the hexagram 4. But notice that it's really important to capitalize on this energy that is not only, at first, when it goes exact, the full moon is over that galactic center on the far side of Ophiuchus. And this is new beginnings. And it's really not your typical full moon. The new beginnings is kind of more like a new moon. So this might have a new moon feel to it. If especially for those of you not feeling that problem or that need to problem solve and that need to ruminate and all of that. So, but anyway, you've got this Sagittarius influence with the tropical, and at the same time, that little snippet where it's also in the sidereal Sagittarius. So it's very important for us to capitalize, but you can see how the tropical ends. So the influence of Sagittarius ends, and that's why you have the Dreambot and the hexagrams going, it's Capricorn now, it's go time, it's problem solving and all that. Well, the solution is to stay in that Sagittarius. And so that's really the whole summary here is even though the moon enters into Capricorn and kind of changes the overall complex of that energy, it's to remain diligent on the Sagittarius, which is move forward without a whole lot of worry and a whole lot of forethought. So carefree, I call it the carefree full moon. It's use youthful folly, and that's not my words, that's the I-Ching words. Use youthful folly to avoid rumination, problem solving, and the superhero complex. And I call the superhero complex because, you know, we need to be saved if there's this big problem. And some of you don't even really have a problem, but you're feeling like you need to be solving something. And that's the big problem with the this particular energy. But just being aware of it can put you into a carefree mode. So if you can't get to the carefree mode, that's when we have a problem. And that's what a counselor like myself would be able to help with. But this is the energy playbook on Interzension, social media. Focus on youthful, free-spirited, optimistic enthusiasm. Foster adventurous vulnerability. And I give a little bit of caution out because the energy may feel heavy and anxious and endless problem solving. But as best you can, you just avoid that and just focus on moving forward like the river will. These problems will work out in the end as you move forward, even if you don't know everything and know how everything's going to work out. It's going with the flow. Do you have any questions? Do you agree with that summary slide? And I'll do this again. So, do we agree with the summary slide? Do you like this? Is this a helpful product? This is not the solution. This is just the influence. And you can see that the solution was actually way up here with the full moon Sagittarius. That was not indicated in the DreamBot. But at least we know what that made influence is. And because we know it, we can deal with it. Not only deal with it, but use it for our best good, our best moving forward. All right, it's a move forward energy. It's a youthful energy. It's not a ruminating and worry like a Virgo kind of energy. All right. So comments are welcome. What else do we need here? Thanks for your follow, share, and happy Father's Day to the fathers out there. We'll see you on Tuesday. Thanks, everybody.